All right, hey everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It's Comic Artist Pro Secrets, and my name is Ethan Van Sciver, 26-year veteran of the comic book industry and world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man. Great big Star Wars fan, trusted member of the media, and I can't find my headphones. I don't know where I put them, so we're going to talk into the air. We're just going to do this old school. We're going to have a little bit of a chat here and make this video the way we would have made it a year and a half ago or so. All right, so a couple of days ago, there was an article in Forbes magazine, and it basically spelled, I wouldn't say doom, but it spelled pessimistic, a very pessimistic outlook for the future of DC Comics. And reading that article and talking with other comic book professionals about it has given me a little bit of perspective, and I think some ideas about why DC Comics is behaving the way they are right now. Indeed, we are on the precipice of the end of the comic book industry. It's melting like Al Gore's polar ice caps, and the polar bears that are depending on those ice caps are starting to get angry. They're starting to get lean, mean, and hungry. They're acting up a little bit on social media. Maybe you've noticed. It is a brutal, unfair world. Maybe it's fair, actually. Maybe in some cases, in some ways, this is fair, what's happening. But, in other ways, it's sad for those of us who love comic books. And we're hoping that comic books would exist and live on throughout our own lives. And that's looking less and less likely, at least in terms of how we know and understand and relate to comic books right now. Little paper pamphlets. Now, last year, after some negotiation, AT&T purchased Time Warner, and I was there at the time. I mean, it was right at the end of my time at DC Comics. We spoke about that in my last video that I made about this, wherein DC Comics was desperately trying to look like an IP farm that would just basically produce all kinds of cool stuff for potentially AT&T to exploit. And you saw them making very strange decisions, like look, we're gonna over the past year since AT&T did acquire them, you saw them canceling Mad Magazine, canceling Vertigo, firing a lot of their staff, especially staff related to the artwork. They fired Mark Chiarello, and they fired a lot of their lettering department, their coloring department. They're just cutting out what you would, I guess they would consider under these circumstances to be the fat. They're trying to look lean and mean. Now, AT&T, of course, having purchased Time Warner, they now own Cartoon Network, Bleacher Report, Adult Swim, TBS, Turner Classic Movies, one of my favorite networks, CNN, oh boy, True TV, TNT, and Warner Brothers, which includes, of course, DC Comics. So DC Comics is right in the corner there, this little kind of antiquated thing that AT&T is now the possessor of, when AT&T's entire purpose for merging with Time Warner was just to be able to compete with streaming giants like Amazon and Netflix. And that's what it was. They basically saw their television ad revenue shrivel up, okay? They had their own little adpocalypse as television becomes less and less of a thing. And I mean, we're watching the world change underneath our feet, underneath our feet. We're watching very strange things that wouldn't have been conceivable only 10 years ago. They're happening. I mean, television eventually is going to be obsolete. It's going to be all about streaming, and it might be about YouTube. People want more choice. They don't want to be marketed to and given limited choices and have to deal with gigantic corporations and what the messaging that they want to offer. People are starting to see through that. People are deciding that that's not what they want to be entertained by. Hence the growth of YouTube, the growth of Netflix. AT&T wanted to get in on this and be a part of it. So Time Warner, seeing their ad revenue shrivel up as well when it comes to television, went all in with AT&T, and together they're going to combine their massive debt, but combine their resources and pull it into creating a new streaming service that will be able to hopefully compete with these guys and look to the future. So if streaming is the future, what in God's holy name are comic books. And I hate to say it because I've given my life to comic books. I at 12 years old, I found comic books and I said, I actually found comic books. I realized that comic books were my heart. I'd always had comic books around me as a kid, but I just used them to, flip through, to cut pictures out of. I would use silly putty on them. They were silly putty, receptacles. So they weren't really, they didn't become something important to me until I was 12. And then they were such an important part of my life that I made the decision at the age of 12 to devote my life to becoming a comic book artist. I mean, that's, and I'm happy that I did. But look, the future might be Netflix, and, the past, of course, these pulpy, fun magazines are going to represent a time when people read, when they actually read books, when they read periodicals. Within a couple of generations, I think that's going to be gone. As well as television. It's going to be a thing of the past. So, what do we do from here? I mean, where does DC Comics go from here? Now, you're watching DC do one thing, which is tighten their belts, shrink their line by 24%, cancel, extraneous, imprints that confuse and confound the eye, apparently, and work towards creating more marketable IPs. They're trying to get attention as, look, we're an IP farm. That's what we do. We create stories. You trust us. All we're going to do is create wonderful stories that you can use later in movies and television and streaming. We're gonna be the research and development arm. This is what we can do for you. We can be the R&D arm of AT&T. We're, you want us to be a lifestyle brand? No. We don't want to just be, a T-shirt farm. Our properties, we create stories. That's what we do. We'll create more stories. And then you'll be able to use those stories to actually make money, which is something that we are incapable of doing. DC Comics brings in about $375 million a year. And, if you really look at the current predicament, I mean, look at this. It's like AT&T currently, they had $85.4 billion in debt, and now having acquired, that's how much it costs to purchase Warner Brothers, right? Now their debt is $164 billion. $164 billion, and DC Comics struggles to bring in $375 million a year. They're insignificant. So unless they can actually make themselves useful. So that's kind of what DC Comics, I think, is trying to do at the moment. Marvel Comics, on the other hand, look, they're like, hey, we weren't bought by no telephone company. Like, you guys, you actually got yourselves bought by a telephone company. We're owned by entertainment conglomerate Disney. They're more likely, these guys just, Disney puts out so much like merchandise, so much crap that it's like they might as well just put out comic books too. Considering, I mean, they might as well just let us do whatever we want to do. And so Marvel is having a fun time putting out tons of variant covers, putting out way more comic books than the market can actually support. And they're doing it for, why are they doing this? Well, I think they're doing it just to appear to be profitable to Disney, to keep their line up, to disguise the fact that the comic book industry is dying and shrinking. But also because this might be it. I mean, they've got to recognize as well that if DC Comics goes under, that's going to be the end of Marvel Comics eventually. And as comic book shops close down at a rate of like 10% per year, and due to all kinds of reasons, but I mean, look, comic book fans are fleeing. There was an article in Bleeding Cool yesterday, reflexive of a woman who owns a comic book store who said, look, I've got $817 worth of books that I ordered on behalf of customers for their subscription boxes, and nobody picked them up and nobody paid for them. I'm out $817, or whatever the profit from that would have been, and whatever I put into this. That's significant to a small business, and that's going to keep happening as Marvel and DC continue to produce work that people don't want. So, what what is the answer to this? Look, I think for 1 minute, let's go back to DC Comics. For one shiny minute, I think DC Comics recaptured Camelot, and that was when Jeff Johns came back and he spearheaded the DC Rebirth line. He did that line wide. They put that on his shoulders. He was able to do it. I remember talking to him in the midst of this. He kind of put everything together and made it. He brought DC back to its shiny, happy, smiley, Super Friends style glory, and people loved it. People ate it up. But there are certain elements within DC Comics, formerly DC Entertainment, now they're DC Comics again, that did not like that. That for some reason was envious of this. There's this weird thing that happens when someone else succeeds. Envy will kind of seek to tear that down. And I think that, not to talk out of school, but I really do think that played a part in abandoning DC Comics' Rebirth initiative and bringing it back to the kind of Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis era of mental illness and misery in these comics. No longer, the Super Friends, no longer that awesome Jose Luis Garcia Lopez iconography that everyone fell in love with. Now it's heroes in crisis, superheroes complaining about how bad they feel on the sofa to robotic therapists, psychoanalysts, while some of them are murdered. It's awful. This is not what people want to read. This is so wrong. The direction is so, God, it's just so pessimistic. I see that stuff and I don't even know. I don't know what is causing this. I don't know why DC Comics would want to take their books in that direction. I don't get it. Batman crying over being left at the altar, jilted by Catwoman. Batman doesn't want to get married. He doesn't want to get married. He's a simple character in the sense that his entire purpose, he devoted his life to fighting crime. That's who he is. He doesn't have time for a personal life. He barely has time to say hello to Alfred. How could he have time? Why would he ever for 1 minute forget what his mission is in order to get married? And then Catwoman just cucks him at the altar. It was embarrassing. I mean, this is not who Batman is. And then in a fit of rage, he punches Robin across the face for no good reason. He abuses his surrogate child. This is when things like this happen. We've lost direction. That DC Comics has lost direction. So in any case, Bounding into Comics follows this article. They follow up the Forbes article that came out a couple days ago. They point out that San Diego Comic-Con as evidence showed DC Comics reduced in size to the point where they were just part of the much bigger Warner Media presence within San Diego Comic-Con. Now, if anybody who's been to San Diego Comic-Con in recent years past will say, what? DC Comics has always had a huge booth filled with gigantic statues or posters or banners of their characters, with media, with TV screens flashing, new animated projects, with booths set up for various comic book professionals to sit and sign. They'd have signing times, and I would have to go there and just do sketches for everybody who waited in line to meet me. It was enormous. That's all gone now. That's all gone. That is a frightening thing. By the way, do you want to meet Tom Holland? You can meet him at Keystone Comic-Con. Yeah, they weren't there. They were just part of this machine. They're no longer DC Entertainment. They're DC Comics again. And when AT&T CEO John Stankey, poor guy, change your name. When you become the CEO of AT&T and your last name is Stankey, I don't care how proud your legacy is as the Stankey family. The Stankey family. It sounds like a Disney XD TV show for tweens. The Stankey family. Change that last name. Look, he talked about the Arrowverse. He talked about Greg Berlanti's work, with the DC characters. But overall, when he talks about what the future is for AT&T, he doesn't even mention DC Comics. He just doesn't even mention it. So that, that is alarming. And, let's see, DC Universe is constantly thought to be on the bubble, but is surviving for now. The worst sign it won't be around long or suffers from a lack of faith by the brass is the cancellation of Swamp Thing. A sudden decision from on high, still shrouded in mystery. It looks like a cost-cutting measure mostly, given all the information. Fried bananas. I don't know about that. And this is, of course, Dan DiDio. Basically coming to the same realization that I just discussed. Dan DiDio, president of DC Comics, saying, look, when we produce facsimile editions, they sell really, really, really well, and nobody wants our new stuff. Our facsimile editions are outselling our new comics. Why is that happening? That is because your audience, you gotta believe me, your audience is not young, hip, diverse Burger King Kids Club. I know that's what you want. I know you want your audience to look like the composite members of parts of Captain Planet, but that's not what they look like. They're mostly old male. Okay, that's it, and they're diverse within that. You've certainly got old men of all different colors and races and sexual preferences, but we're mostly in our 30s, 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s. And we're the ones who go and have the money to buy the comic books every week. And we're the ones in the comic book stores. And yeah, there are some women too. But if you pander to these small segments of your audience at the expense of your larger, more devoted audience, you will see decline. And that is what we are seeing now. We are seeing decline. It is what Comicsgate is based on. It's what we've been talking about now for 2 years. 2 years plus. He's just like, look, we put out these facsimile editions, and basically what they are, they're comic books, they're reprints of our old books, complete with Hubba Bubba ads. Remember the Hubba Bubba ads? Bubblegum? And they're doing better than our normal books. Yeah, people miss the old DC Comics. People miss the way you used to make them feel. And I think, again, you got it back for a minute with DC Rebirth, and then you quickly swept that under the rug and got right back to the misery, gloom, and doom. You got right back to the social justice bullshit. You got right back to making people miserable again. And that's it. I mean, from there, that's it. I'm not even sure, by the way, that Rebirth would have changed anything long term. I'm not sure that Rebirth and sticking to that message could have, helped you survive the AT&T merger, because ultimately, the comic books are a thing of the past, and that merger was created entirely to look towards the future. Rob Liefeld says, I ain't never seen a company in as much disarray as DC Comics. Thank God they have Batman to act as their Tylenol, aspirin, laughing gas. More Batman will fix it. Yeah. All right, so this article closes with, still, DC has to be concerned about AT&T's short-term focus on profitability and a lackluster approach to legacy brands. A sword hangs over them that keeps drawing closer. And that's it. I mean, so, DC's decisions make sense within the context of this merger. Their only argument for their existence is to create stories, to say that we are research and development into IPs, that we will create new stories that can be turned into movies. But that is no longer a good argument when the stories that you're producing are so miserable. It's not a good argument when the stories that you're producing are making people unhappy and turn away from comic books instead of come back to comic books. We could still be a tiny industry that was still, profitable on a small scale, because we produce fun stories that can be read by comic book fans, that could also be enjoyed once they turn into giant, multi-$100 million movies. Those stories could easily translate, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're not in that. We're not doing that. We're producing social justice. We're producing The Future is Female, and we're producing suicidal depression in our superheroes, and nobody wants to read it. Nobody wants to read it. Nobody wants to go to the movies to see it, I'm afraid. Look, this channel and other channels like it, we are going to chronicle the decline and eventual extinction of the comic book industry. At least the way that we knew it, up till now. Will comic books survive? Yes. They will, as long as there are people who want to produce them and people who want to read them. And there are people who want to produce them, and there are people who want to read them. They're like me. We will continue to see comic books, but will they survive 2 or 3 more generations? Almost certainly not. People just are not interested in. I think kids are not as interested in these magazine publications or collecting them as they used to be, and that's reality. Television is going the way of the dodo too. Things are changing, and we need to adapt to them. But we'll watch this all happen, and we'll see. I could be wrong. Maybe we'll see that I'm wrong. I wish I was wrong. I wish I was wrong about any of this. I'm probably not. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for another 20-minute video where I just talk about my feelings about what's going on and my predictions. Thank you for listening. If you listen this long, please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications. Also, please hit that like button if you wouldn't mind. Really helps with the algorithm, so I can expound more about these things. I don't know if YouTube likes 21-minute videos. I think they like 9-minute or 10-minute videos. They like 10-minute videos, but nevertheless, I do have a lot to say about this. All right, thanks. I'll see you again later with another video. Hey, I made another t-shirt. Look at this. Comic Artist Pro Secrets Avoid the Soy Tee with my classic and iconic Soy Boy sketch. Why do they all look like this? I don't know, but if you're arguing with some SJW on Twitter, double check. This is accurate right down to the smirk. Order your Avoid the Soy t-shirt, link below in the description. Thank you. Hey, you want to follow me on Twitter? Are you sure? Well, if so, I'm at Ethan Van Sciver. That's at Ethan Van Sciver. See you there. Hey, I got a P.O. box. Want to send me some mail? Send it to Ethan Van Sciver, P.O. Box 607, Marlton, New Jersey, 08053. And I'll probably open it up on the live stream. Thanks very much, everyone.